Hello, hello. Welcome back to Release Your Inner Power. We're going to do something a little different. I wanted to chat with you guys about some things here. So, Real Talk Thursdays. This is something that I'm going to start soon. So, I'm not sure if any listeners have heard my story that I just recently was interviewed on a podcast. It's called What's Your Story by Melissa O'Neill. And she interviewed me about what my story was and my upbringing and kind of like what made me who I am, today. And I have got an overwhelming response of, reaching out to people and just from that interview, like touching somebody or giving them inspiration or giving them motivation or just being like a light in the situation. And thank you for those who have given me feedback. I love feedback. I love it when people, send me an email or send me a message or let me know, their story and share with me. I love that stuff. So please, if my podcast ever reaches out and touches you, or you get something out of it, or you want to share your story, or you want to just say what's up, please reach out to me. I love all of that stuff. I love the feedback. I love the chatting. I love all of that. So because of that, I think I'm going to do some real talk, peeling back the layers of the onion, if you will, breaking down of what I went through and my story, and really getting into the nitty-gritty of what my thoughts were and how I worked through that, and kind of getting to where I am now. And I think the process of this is, me being real and raw and sharing things that I have never shared with people before. I'd like to say that I'm an open book and that I will, if you ask me, I'll tell you. If, you want to know more, I will gladly talk about it. But I'm not usually a person that just offers it out there and chats it up. And so I think for this Real Talk Thursday that I'm going to be doing is, going to get real and raw and share some of the things that I had to go through, share some of the trenches that I have worked through as an individual to make me who I am today, and will eventually get to a point of my life of being a mom all the way through to where I'm at now. So, where to start, right? Where to start? I was thinking about that. I'm like, how far back do I go? How far back do I go? And it's going to be just kind of like storytelling and chatting with you, if you will, telling you about my story, really getting raw of how I was thinking about things, what I was thinking about. And I'm going to go back as early as I can remember. Thank you to one of my friends for giving me that idea. I'm going to go back as early as I remember and just kind of tell you what my thoughts that I had as a kiddo, and, go from there as far as each chapter, if you will. So I think as early back as I can remember, which is really kind of funny, actually. I'm going to share this with you. So one of my earliest memories, I think I was 3 years old, and I was in a hospital, and I remember standing at a door, and I'm like on my tippy toes, and I'm just really trying to look into this window, and I'm looking through this window, and there's a long hallway in front of me, and I'm like looking through, and I'm with my auntie and my grandma, and we're looking through this window, and then all of a sudden I see my dad come out of this room, and he's holding a baby, and he's like presenting him like, here's my baby boy. And it was my brother. And I just remembered being so excited. Like I felt like my body was going to burst, and I was so excited that I had a baby brother, and I was so excited about it. And I remember jumping up and down and like being excited. Like that is literally my earliest memory that I had, was like the joy of having a sibling. I'm actually grateful that I have that memory. My next memory was me being a sassy pants, and I was on a countertop at my grandma's house, and I was climbing to get something, probably a snack, out of the counter. And she's like, "You better get down from there. You're going to fall." And I remember looking at her and being like, "Grandma, I know how to climb on counters and I'm going to be fine. And it was completely by myself, but it was like somebody just shoved me right on the ground and I landed on my face and I almost bit my bottom lip off and I had to go get it sewn back on and get all these stitches and stuff on my chin. And it was like, I really had a lesson of not being a sassy pants to my grandma anymore when you are 4 years old and you have to get most of your lips sewn back on your face because you decided to be a sassy pants about some snacks and getting face first down on the ground. I laugh about it now, but man, that was pretty traumatizing at 4 years old, but I laugh about it now because it was like someone just, oh, you want to talk to your grandma like that? Well, let's see this. Boom, right on your face. Sorry, grandma. But no, for real, like what I want to talk to you guys about is my upbringing, my life, and what made me who I am today, including those memories, right? I am an oldest of three. I have a brother who is 3 years younger than me, which is my first memory that I've ever had. And then I have a sister who is significantly younger than me. She could be my own child, but she is 20 years younger than me. And we'll get to that later on, in my story sharing. I was raised with a mom and a dad. They were married until later on in my life. And so it was us four doing a lot of things. We were very close family, close-knit family. Before I was born, my family would always stay together and move around to different states and things. We're talking extended family. Like my family is a family where my cousins feel like my brothers and sisters. My second cousins also feel like my brothers and sisters. And we don't really do the second cousin thing or the great aunt thing. It's just aunt and cousin, make it less confusing. But we are one of those families where you got to get the chart out. You got to look like second cousin once removed and, great aunt this and that, all that. Like we are a family where we could sit down and actively put names on that big chart, but we actually hang around each other even to this day. So we're very, very close. It is very important for us to have family connection, make memories, and do all the family things, Sunday dinners at grandma's house, having conversations, doing all the holidays, things like that. And, growing up and, I had a pretty regular life on the outside, going to school. I played basketball. I did pretty well in school. It was hard for me to sit still in a classroom. I remember struggling as a kid, looking at the clock and just thinking like school was the longest time ever. And it was so torturous for me to sit there. And I had to figure out ways to sit in my seat and to pay attention. And I would have to like doodle on a piece of paper or rewrite my name until it was bold. I had to write notes to someone else, talk to them, but not pass it to them, but write that to them so I could give it to them later. I had to be doing those things in order for me to sit and pay attention. After school would be the same thing. Chores. If I could go hang out with a friend, I would, doing homework, things like that. Typical outside stuff. On the inside, it was different. On the inside, my household was very different. On the inside, I grew up with an addict father and a mom who was trying to hold it all together, hold the family together, do all the things, as well as try to save her marriage and have a good, relationship with her kids. And I think that it was extremely difficult for her, but I think that she kind of sidelined that and it was just what she had to do because of the amount of love, compassion, and empathy she had for her family because, family is the most important. Family is the thing that you're supposed to take care of. So as a kiddo, I had some memories of my, dad being gone a lot. I remember when I was 5 years old being in the airport and, like that jet fuel smell. It was back in the day when you used to be able to go to the gate. And when your family member came off the plane, you could actually meet them at the gate. You can't do that anymore, but I remember I used to do that. And my dad would work in Alaska a lot and we would go to the gate every time he would come home and we would meet him there and see him. And so I remember one of my earliest smell memories, if you will, is jet fuel of meeting him. After my brother was born, he decided to stay down in Washington and open his own business and have his own business down in Washington. So he was here. But he got an addiction to drugs. And as a kiddo, I didn't really understand. I didn't understand what it was. I just knew he was gone a lot. I knew that, you know, he would be there, like on the weekends, he would be there. He would always be there on Sunday, and we would go do stuff. Like we would go to our grandma's house for dinners, and we would, you know, watch a football game there. But it was like all of us. Like it wasn't just, you know, my mom, dad, and my brother and I. It would be like my aunt would bring, you know, her kiddos, and, you know, sometimes my uncle and his kiddos would be there, and we would really try to kind of come together at grandma's house and really like hang out and spend time with them and connect with them. You know, like, I mean, that went on forever, as long as I can remember. But we would sometimes, my dad had a boat, and we would sometimes go out on his boat and just spend the weekend and, like, you know, go wherever. We live in the Pacific Northwest, so sometimes we go to the San Juans, or sometimes we just go out in the water. Sometimes we would fish, sometimes we would just be out there, you know, just doing different things. If it was in the winter times, we would go, you know, play in the snow, you know, do certain things like that. So he would really want to try to like make good memories with us and do some things like that. But at the same time, he would also disappear for days at a time. Sometimes it would be 2 days. Sometimes it would be 5 days. It was never the same consistency. I remember there were times when I was little where my mom would make dinner, and we would have dinner, and my mom would wait, and then finally we would just eat, because it was really, my mom is a firm believer that we should be eating dinner together because it helps with connection with the family. And if you've been gone all day, you know, to kind of like reset and give everybody time to see each other's face and chat and all that kind of stuff. And as an adult now, looking back, very, very, very minimal times were we eating dinner together. It was usually, if we were eating dinner together, it was like when we were with like grandparents or extended family, things like that. But for us to actually all be together in the house was rare. And we would finally just eat. She would put my dad's food away, and then, you know, the second night she'd put my dad's food away, and she didn't really talk about it. I know she cried a lot, and she was upset a lot, because she didn't know where he was or what he was doing, because he wouldn't answer his phone. When he got a cell phone, you know, he got one of those cell phones that you carry on your shoulder, and it's like the big box. Some of you will know what I'm talking about. It's like the big box thing, and then the phone was connected to it. It was like the oldest cell phone ever. It was so ridiculous. I remember thinking, that is heavy, and no thank you. Like, but she would call around to try to find him. It was easier to hide back then, right? Because we had landlines. We didn't have cell phones except for this box, but nobody had this big old beastie dinosaur looking thing. Nobody had that yet. It was starting, you know, it was starting with people with businesses and things like that, but it wasn't a common thing. And so to find people, it was either pagers or it was landlines. And so you couldn't find anybody. You had to wait for them to call you or for them to come home. And it was nerve-wracking. Or calling, you know, my grandma, have you heard from him? Do you know if he's okay? Do you know when he's coming home? Like all that thing, or vice versa. And it was very much a, it was stressful. It was kind of like a question mark. And I remember being really little and thinking, you know, is it something like, can I do something for him to stay here? Like, why is he leaving all the time? I don't understand. And I'm tired of my mom being sad because, you know, from my perspective, my dad would be gone for, you know, 2 to 5 days. And then when he would come home, my mom would be just, you know, fit to be tied, if you will. She's going to be pissed because where have you been? You know, you have kids, you have a family, you're supposed to be here. And she wants all of her answers and she's mad. And so then they end up fighting. And so then me and my brother are listening to the fighting, you know, and then once the fighting is done, then now we can go and have our memories and go talk or go play, you know, go do our sports, go, you know, do whatever, what have you, depending on what it is. But I always knew that he would be home on Sundays, which is super interesting. He would always be home on Sundays, whether he was in his chair sleeping or coming with us to grandma's house for that family connection or what have you. He would always be home on Sundays. You know, and I guess it would depend on how truly present he actually was by how long he was gone during the week. If it was short, he'd be like awake on the weekend and like really present. And if he was not, he would be like sleeping a lot. So I remember being frustrated as a kid. There was one time, me and my brother talk about it all the time. Like there's one time where his like lazy boy chair or recliner, if you will, was in the living room. And me and my brother would be watching TV on the weekend, and he would start snoring, and we would get so annoyed, and we would just be like, can you hear the TV? And he's like, no, I can't hear the TV. And so we would try to figure out sneaky ways to like not get in trouble, basically, to like get dad to stop snoring. And so we would like either hit his foot or something and he would stop snoring, or we would just be like, Dad, you're snoring, and he would get irritated. Regardless, he would get irritated. And one time my brother put a carrot in his mouth to try to get him to stop snoring, and woo, we got in trouble for that one. That was the last attempt to try to get him to stop snoring. We got in a lot of trouble for that. But we always talk about how, do you remember that time we put a carrot in Dad's mouth? Because it was like this whole big uproaring of like, what the hell, and blah, 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 and, you know, coming out of sleep and being all crabby, and we got put in our rooms and, like, this whole 9 yards, and then we couldn't really hear the TV because we were in trouble. We couldn't even go in the living room anymore. It sucked. It was awful, but we still give each other shit about that now, about the carrot situation. But I remember, it's interesting, I think what I'm going to do with these two is ask my brother's opinion and then talk about like what he thought, just to get a different perspective. But I didn't truly understand where my dad was going or what was going on. I felt as a kiddo, this is like when my age right now is like under 10 and under at least. I just remember when he was gone, it would cause a bunch of problems. He would be gone for long periods of time. I wouldn't understand why he was gone. I didn't really understand that he had an addiction. I didn't even know what that was as a kiddo. You know, my world wasn't as big yet. I just knew that it was bad and it was wrong, whatever he was doing, and that he was gone, and I didn't know why he was gone. There wasn't really an answer. I just know that it was turmoil when he was gone. For my mom and surrounding family members were really sad and upset and stressed out, and that, you know, when he did come home, there'd be a lot of fighting because there's a lot of resentment and anger for not being home. And then I wasn't allowed to ask questions. I was a kiddo. You know, I come from an era of you're seen and not heard. You don't get to speak to adults and ask adult conversations or ask adult questions. You don't get to know the answers of some things. You have to kind of just be the observer, just sit there and, you know, as a kid, act like you're not paying attention, but you know all the things that are going on. I feel also that our generation is a generation of, you know, the parents think that they're actually hiding stuff. And we know now as adults that you don't hide anything from your kids. I mean, they might not know the whole detail, but they can feel what's going on. They know what's going on. It was the same when I was a kiddo. I remember feeling really sad for my mom and feeling sad for the situation and being really confused and not fully understanding why I was really confused, you know, and trying to be in protection of, you know, my brother so he can be happy and he can, you know, not really worry about it and just diving into other things for, you know, maybe taking my mind off of it, playing sports. You know, I played a lot of basketball. I played some soccer when I was a kid, but I played a lot more basketball, and I found that that was my heart, and I really liked it. I liked the competitiveness of it. I liked the level of having to, you know, next level yourself, really practice certain skills and getting better, and you know, being with a team, being with people that you connect with, having a coach, having a person that is, you know, guiding and teaching you and being there. It was like my escape. It was my fuel, you know, not realizing it as a kiddo, but as an adult looking back, you know, I was moving my body, I was doing something that I loved, and it was bringing me happiness. And I was doing that 3 times a week with my 2 practices and my game. I was doing that 3 times a week. And then, you know, going and hanging out with friends and really connecting with friends when your mom is working and, you know, you're either watching your brother or, trying to, I guess, just make it to the next day with what's going on at home. I was trying to make that as happy as, you can with what you have. And I think I did an okay job, but I was in my head a lot. I thought about a lot of things. I thought about, and questions, right? I asked a lot of questions. How can I feel better with this? Or what can I do to make myself happy? How can I make myself happy? What, one of my answers was basketball and the other one was friends. And really connecting with friends. I had a couple besties that live around me, actually, that I would go to their house a lot after school, and I would call and just head over to their house and hang out, as when I got a little bit older. And, same with my brother. We would try to do that a lot if I didn't have basketball, after school. But the confusion was definitely set in that I didn't really fully understand why he was gone. I didn't like it, and I knew it felt scary and not right, and this isn't how it's supposed to be. So when he was around, I was really trying to do what he said and, let's go do the thing so I could have, it was like my dad time. So I was really trying to take advantage of that. And when I was little, I thought, maybe if I play a really good game of basketball, or maybe if I get really good grades, or, maybe if I show him that I'm listening and I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, that he'll want to be home more. He'll want to be around more. He'll want to, make more memories, if you will. It was interesting because it was more or less like me feeling like I had to prove myself to my father. When looking back now as an adult, did not even understand that he was affecting me that way. Like that he was affecting me to a way of me questioning what I needed to do, to like prove my worth to him, if you will. I remember around 8 years old, 9 years old, I think 8 to 10-ish. I was in a car riding home from my grandparents' house, and I was really in deep thought. I was in my mom's like old Buick car, and we were driving, and it was nighttime, and there was lights passing by, and you're like looking out the window, looking at all the lights, looking at the people, looking at the other cars, looking at all the things. And I remember thinking, and it just coming to me, that you can do anything you put your mind to. And I remember kind of like having this conversation with myself, like, oh, I can do anything that I put my mind to. And it's like, yeah, I can do anything I put my mind to. Like I can do this. I can do anything. And just in general, like I didn't have a specific thing, it was just like in general, and really thinking about testing that out. Like, ooh, I want to test that out. Cause I really think that this is the thing. Like this, I can do this. I can do anything I put my mind to. And really testing it out with basketball, testing it out with school, testing it out with, just like my friends of, oh, I want this, I really want to be a good friend to this person, or, I really want to up my skill level at basketball if I didn't do something correctly, or I messed up, or I played a bad game or whatever, and having it be like, okay, well, how can I make it better? How can I get to this level? How can I, be the point guard? How can I be, a better player than what I was, last week? And because I knew what I wanted to be in the end, right? Because thinking of, you can do anything you put your mind to. Okay, well, what do I want? I want to be a really good basketball player. I want to get really good grades. So I knew what that was. So it was like I was setting an intention without really knowing that I was setting an intention, and then working through that. Like, okay, I played a bad game. Well, why did I play a bad game? I remember one time I think I was in 4th grade or 5th grade, and I went and stayed the night at my cousin's house. And when you have a sleepover, you like stay up late and you talk and you're like giggling and la la la, and you don't really get good rest. And then I had a game the next morning, and my aunt took me to the game the next morning. And I remember I didn't play very good. And I remember it was because I was tired and because I was like really having to push because I was tired. I was like, man, it was like my legs were heavy, like they didn't want to move. And I remember thinking, man, me not getting sleep, that really, I realized that had an effect on my game. And so from then on, I was like, I wouldn't do that. I think that was the last one I ever did that on because I did not want to, I wanted to play good. I wanted to show up for my team. I wanted to be there and help them out. And that was not happening after I had my little sleepover and I didn't get any sleep. But it's interesting because the things that I worked through as a kid and the thought processes that I had and what I was doing to process things. I'm wondering if that was part of me, working through the bigger stuff by focusing on the little things, in my opinion, of what I could control, right? It's what I can control. I can control how I play basketball. I can control how I get my good grades. I can control like the avenue, the way I do it. If this way works, do I try it another way? And then I control how I feel about all of that. And because I couldn't control anything else, because I couldn't control how my mom felt, I couldn't control my dad coming home, I couldn't control, the scenarios and situations that were going on around me, I think made me focus within. Well, what can I do for me to do anything that I put my mind to? How can I do that? How can I change that? How can I get there? But being like open to possibilities too, not like being so dead set on something. And if it didn't work out, I would get discouraged about it and I'd be upset about it. And I'd be like, that was a really, that was a really bad game, or I totally bombed this test, or what have you. I would try to look at it in a different way of like, how can I make this better? How can I change this around so it doesn't happen next time? How can it be different? Or was there something there like my sleepover that had an effect on it, right? Just being open and asking questions and really, what do I want? Checking in with what I want. To really think about putting anything, doing anything that I put my mind to. And I remember as a kid, like getting really good grades on the test, really understanding, my subjects in school, really becoming really close friends with a couple of my, girls around, in my school, and having that deep relationship and closeness with them, as well as, my basketball, and being able to get better, get more competitive, break out more of my shell in that way. I was shy at first and I was holding back, and then I figured out how to not do that anymore and really work through that. And with all of those things and seeing, it was like proof to myself as a kid, like I can do this. I can do anything I put my mind to. Look at what I did. Look at what I did. Look at how I improved it. Look at how I bettered up my game. Look at how I upped my grades. Look at how I'm having more friends. I was like also seeing those things and knowing that they were proof of what I was thinking. And then it's like, well, what else can I do? What else can I have? What else do I want? And then going from there. So I hope that listening to this little section and the beginning of my journey with you guys, each Real Talk Thursday, I'm going to talk a little bit more about my timeline and talk a little bit more about what I was thinking and what I was working through, and really get into the nitty gritty here. The beginning is a little bit more innocent, but we're about to get into the nitty gritty of what I really had to work through in the teenage years, the trenches of the teenage years, and what I had to work through when I was 21 is pretty deep. It's a pretty deep trench with a lot of aspects to it that I'm willing to share, in hopes to, give somebody some kind of encouragement, touch somebody, know that they're not alone, know that there's other people out there that have gone through it, and some perspective on, maybe some way to climb out of that and get out of it to become a strong person and be able to release your inner power. You know what I'm saying? So Thank you for listening to the first section and chapter of this, and I will continue Real Talk Thursdays, and I hope you come and listen to the next one where we go a little bit deeper with this, peel back some more layers of this onion. So I hope you guys have a good rest of your day, and chat soon.